It was the first night of the year, and I was just sitting here relaxing, enjoying the summer here in New Zealand, and I heard this argument going on down the street. It was horrendous. All I could hear was this woman's voice yelling and screaming and if and just words and just volume. It was just horrific what I was listening to. And so I thought, what on earth is going on? So I went out, and here was this quite large lady and quite a large man just down the road down there on the pavement, and he was sort of bending down in front of her like he was praying, and he was begging, and she was just laying into him with horrific words. And I couldn't get understand all the conversation, but I thought, man, what has he done? What has he done to deserve anything like that? Or he probably doesn't even deserve that anyway. But I thought, man, what do I do? And I did nothing, which I will talk a bit about later on. But um, I thought a few minutes later, after she had finished, they walked past, and all I could see was his head was bowed down really low. It was under a hoodie, and she was walking beside him with her arm around him. It's like, what on earth is going on in that guy's brain? Um, and perhaps he just wanted to die now. I've written a whole lot of words in my blog post: shame, control, reward, domination, passivity, enslavement, depression, loss of hope, piece of dirt, self hatred, internal violence, external passivity, death, impotency to do anything at all. And the thought of this man moving into his world and making a difference was kind of long gone. He was impotent. The potency and masculinity of him was crushed. I could see it. And was there any beauty in her? I struggled to see it. There was nothing really within her actions that drew me to wanting to know God more. Perhaps her holding of the man was beautiful, but maybe it was manipulation. Maybe it was all part of a power play that she had observed, picked up from childhood. Punishment, then reward brings compliance, control. All of these things I was thinking about, and it was just going off in my brain. So you don't see this often on the streets here, which is good. But I've often thought that what a man can do with a fist, a woman can do with her tongue. Now, look, I know that's a gross generalization because um, it can be turned around the other way as well. Um, but I've seen it too many times for it not to have an element of truth that men get abused too. Look, I know men can punch and scratch with their words as well. In this instance, the woman was lashing with her tongue, and the entire world could see it, which was another shaming factor. Verbal violence can come not only like a flow of vomit, but it can also come with like sharp little cuts and scratches to the delicate places, just little jabs, little pokes, little sentences said that just can be like little daggers. Verbal violence can come in many forms, and abuse in any form is not okay. I watched him walk away, or I should say, I watched him crawl away. And again, I want to say men can be equally violent with their tongues. And all of us, every one of us, men, women, we all need to learn to be gracious in speech. Colossians 4 says this: be gracious in your speech. The goal to bring out the best in others in a conversation, not put them down, not cut them out. To cross a line, which is like a little phrase we have, is to behave in a way that is not socially acceptable. And we all should know the norms of what is acceptable and what is not. What is the line that should not be crossed? But in my experience, that often people don't have some of those lines brought into their thinking as children. That it's not acceptable to do these things. And I keep on remembering the story I learnt from Craig Barnes, a pastor in the States, and this is in a book that he wrote. So I'll just read this out. When I was a child, one day my father brought home a 12-year-old boy named Roger. Roger's parents had both died of a drug overdose. As his family's pastor, my dad had done all he could to intervene, but to no avail. When it became clear to my parents that there was no one else who cared about this boy, they decided to raise him as one of their own sons. From the day he walked into the door, through the door probably, Roger became joint heir in the family. He stayed with us until he had grown up and joined the army. My parents did a wonderful thing in making Roger part of the family, but it created a lot of work for him. You can imagine that growing up in a home of heroin addicts was far different from what Roger discovered in the home of my pious parents. I can't count the number of times I heard my parents say, "No, no, Roger, that's not how we act here. You don't have to fight or scream or hurt others to get what you want. No, no, we expect you to act differently here." See, they are drawing a line. With his parents constantly stoned, Roger had spent the first 12 years of his life consumed by fear and by necessity completely self absorbed. He even used to wonder if there would be enough food for him to eat. But now, in his new home, he had to learn something about sharing things, demonstrating good manners, and doing family chores. Most of the hard lessons Roger learned at our home took place around the family table. Time and time again, I heard my parents teach him how to pass food, how to eat slowly, how to speak politely, how to clean up afterwards. Through it all, they were teaching him how to live out his identity as a cherished son. You see, Roger was learning lines, what was socially normal, appropriate, and acceptable. With that story I shared with you earlier on, the next day after, I realized I'd failed them both. I didn't confront the abuser and I didn't connect with the victim. In a sense, I walked by the man in the ditch while the robbers were stripping him naked. Okay, that's the story of the dehumanized man or the Good Samaritan. I can make excuses. She was a big woman, she really was, and he was a big man. I could have been hurt. There was potential of me getting quite hurt. But I failed to be like Craig Barnes's father and say, that's not how we act here. I didn't uphold the line that abuse in any form is not okay. It then got me thinking about women being violent to men. And you might think, well, Barry, why didn't you call the police? Well, I did think of that, but the police are like 30 minutes away. And I wonder what they would actually do. If the man was hitting the woman, like with a fist, they would lock him up and take him away. I wonder what they would do to her if they saw her being verbally violent. Would they lock her up and take her away? I doubt it. So I Google searched about woman violence against men, and it came back with recommendations for Women's Refuge, which is an incredibly good organisation helping women suffering domestic violence. But I wonder if there's a men's branch. And the statistics are terrible. And if you come over to the website, and there's a link to some stats about violence against men and boys in New Zealand. Look, perhaps you have been the one who has had lines crossed. Someone has crossed a line and abused you, put you down. It might be with words or with physical violence. Abuse comes in many, many different forms. The need, I find, is to build a line, to know the line. And a line defines what is acceptable and what is not. This is who I am, and this is not. Some people have had so many lines crossed that they don't see they have any lines at all. It's like they are not even there. The person is not even there. They are simply something for others to pass through, take what they want, move on. And one of the most beautiful and meaningful activities I have seen is when I've helped someone to define the line, to define this is who I am. And they begin to see like a beauty within or a purpose, a kind of potency to move into this world, to make a difference, to welcome other people into their world, to show them what God is like. Um, it's hard to write a description of this exercise, but what if you were to lie on a really large piece of paper, just lie down, and then someone get like a marker pen and draw all around your profile, all right, trace you out, and and then you stand up and you look down and you can see your profile. Okay, some of you may not like this, but that's who you are. That's the profile of your physical makeup, put it that way. And then what if you were to write words into that profile about who you are, your, some of your great qualities? Maybe others could write things into. What if you were to draw pictures of things that are important to you? Maybe like you were tattooing the body, things that are significant for you. What about if you were to cut images out of magazines and so on and paste those? And but all was inside the lines that have been drawn around you. And inside the line, it says, "This is who I really am. This is my likes. This is my dislikes, my hopes, my dreams, my desires, my plans." The line stays there, but it's kind of getting stronger from the inside out. And you become more defined as who you really are, not just a vacuous space. And outside of those lines, well, are the we and the work, the people that you closely connect to, and the activities that you do in your everyday normal life. Your lines define you. You're different to anybody else. And then I thought of that wonderful poem by Mary Oliver, and the last little line, and she says this: "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" Hey, I hope you found this interesting, helpful. Send me some emails. I love to hear from people. It's barry@turningthepage.co.nz. Love to get some feedback on this. I'm going to be running a class about lines, which is a class about boundaries, in a few weeks' time. If you want to learn more about that, you need to actually get on my email list so you can get a hold of the details. So if you come over to the website and read this post at the bottom, there is a sign up form for the subscriber newsletter. But until then, yeah, draw a picture of yourself, even if it isn't a full size. Draw a profile of yourself and start to add in qualities and things for you. Okay, thanks. Bye.